Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome back to this session of The Doctor Will See You Now. Hope everyone's well and hope your reading is going fabulously. And if you are a little sort of like stuck for a new read, a new voice, a new context, well, might I suggest you delve into Death in Heels by Kitty Murphy. Kitty, it's lovely to welcome you to the session. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
An absolute pleasure. It's the first time that I've met with you, and it's the first time to have you as well on our little channel here. So I wonder if you will, for myself and for the viewers, the listeners, could you please tell us how you got into crime fiction?
I think I was around 8 or 9, and I was at a jumble sale with my mum, and it was a big church jumble sale, and she was going through this huge table of jumpers and cardigans, and I just remember this mound of wool in front of me, and I saw this collection of books, and they were white covers with simple designs and titles like the ABC Murders. And I remember looking over and going, I want to read that. And I kept hassling her and hassling, please, I want these books. And she looked at me and she's like, Agatha Christie's too old for you. I was like, no, I really, and I was desperate for them. And she sort of gave in the end and gave me 20p or whatever it was. And I bought my first stack of books. And I think she thought that I'd just give it a go and, be sort of confused or been put off by it because of all the grisly murders, but turns out not so much. And there was a love affair began.
Fabulous. That sense of where, well, it's almost like love at first sight, isn't it? It's not where you expect maybe to start. And against your mum saying, I'm not sure, I'm sure this is the one.
I'm sure.
So between being that initial, excited reader to being the person that now publishes, crime and mystery, has the journey been a simple one? Where did you set out to write maybe a different genre and you landed here? Talk to us a little bit about, coming to be, the author Kitty Murphy.
I've always written like I've always read. I think most writers are, passionate readers. So I'd read many different genres. I love science fiction. I love romance, as long as, somebody dies. I think it's great. I love crime fiction. I love literary fiction. And I tried a few different things when I was younger. I worked as a journalist for a while. I've written quite a bit of non-fiction here and there for different things. And when we got to the pandemic, I'd already had a literary agent, wonderful Ed Wilson, who had signed me for a different book, which didn't find a publisher. And we were chatting about things, and I had this idea, and it just came out of nowhere. I had this idea of writing a murder mystery in the drag world. I love the murder mystery books and I love drag. It's very much my happy place. And I sort of put this past him, and he was very excited by it, and I was instantly excited by it. And the rest pretty much was history. It's been so much fun to write the book, the series. I've written the first 2 now, and I suppose in the pandemic, for all of us, we really missed our family and our friends, our found family. Those of us, we could see 1 or 2 people, but for a lot of us, family is more than that, isn't it? It's And I really missed my family, my found family. And so I sort of, I guess in a way, created my little world in this fictional drag scene.
I really appreciate what you say, because it certainly is the sense that when you dive into these pages, you dive into that world, and I think, despite the murders, right, but I think you make it a very welcoming world in a way. I know we've got the tensions there, but I think because of the friendships and because of that community that you've created, I think there's very much a sense of the reader becoming part of that community, you know, and
Oh, that's such a lovely thing to hear. Thank you. That's
yeah.
lovely. I really wanted that. That was so important to me.
It took me back to my many years ago in Granada in Spain, where that was my sort of like first experience of the drag community. And so you brought back many happy memories as well.
Oh,
So,
I'm glad.
but I have to ask you, Kitty, why Dublin? I mean, there's many a fine city with many a lively drag scene that you could have set this in. So, why Dublin? What does it mean to you?
Dublin, I live out in Clare, so I live in West Island. I spend quite a bit of time in Dublin. I go there, I suppose I go there for live drag nowadays more than anything else. The drag scene in Dublin is one of the best in the world. It's right up there with London, New York, Miami, LA. The drag kings and queens and non-binary performers we have there are just stunning. They're incredibly professional. I mean, they're brilliant to watch, and they're nothing like my lot at all. My lot are messy, hopeless, overdramatic, show up late.
Mm,
These are professional performers who
mm.
just blow me away every time I go there on stage. I suppose yeah, it's my happy place. So
Was it? Was that the first? Well, I'm really intrigued. You know, like sharing, you know, with you that my first experience in Granada was your first experience in Dublin.
no, my first experience of seeing drag was when I was 16. Well spent youth. I was in London, and I was a musician, so I'd be there quite a lot to perform. I lived in the southwest of England. Um, and I saw this poster, and it was a drag queen, and it was advertising for one night at this place. Um, and I went on my own, and I was so nervous, and I was really shaking, and I kept thinking I'd never been to any kind of gay bar, queer space. I've never been to anything like that. And I knew I was bi. I was, really aware of
Yeah.
myself, but I'd never really met other people that I knew in that community. And I sort of went in, and I got myself a drink, and I was in the dark, and I had the bars back then. It was all very smoky, and
Yeah, yeah,
everyone
yeah.
knew each other, but they knew one another, but I didn't know them. And so I sort of hid behind this pillar. And I remember the lights coming on over the stage, and this curtain moved, and this amazing drag queen walked out onto the stage, and she had the most hideous dress on, and huge wig, and terrible makeup, and she had this absolute confidence, and she was so funny, and she took anyone on. If anyone was heckling, or I remember the speakers crackling and squeaking, and she had to go at them. Anything was free game. And I just remember looking at her and thinking, wow, yeah, that's just wow. And that was it. Yeah, I suppose very much like discovering crime fiction, and what you love.
Yes, yeah,
There
and
she
I
was.
find, reading, the your little bio
Hmm.
details in the book, in that sense of, I love that you say that these two worlds, it only made sense that for you to write that they come together,
Yeah,
and
I
that you,
suppose that's what we do, don't we? Don't we? We write what we love. We write
mm,
our life.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's so important that, you know, even if it's a current that's, that runs underneath the text itself, that there is a passion there,
Hmm.
you know. I'm not talking romance or things like that, but that,
Hmm.
these stories matter, this genre matters, these spaces, places, people, it
Yeah.
matters, and so to put those forward, I think anybody who doesn't write with that element, that the writing lacks something,
Right.
you
I
know.
think own voices are incredibly important, aren't they?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
hearing people's voices,
yeah.
and I think what's wonderful nowadays is how much more we're hearing from such a diverse group of writers, because the world is a wonderful mixed place of all different people.
Exactly. I think, looking at, whether you agree with who won or who didn't win, the recent Academy Awards, I think to see diversity acknowledged, whatever kind of diversity that, I think it's so positive in the face of other things that seem to be happening in our world. So, but yes, I'll move swiftly away from that just to come back to this fabulous story. So the setting, Dublin, and the drag scene that's there, but we can't really delve further into that until you talk to me about one of your main protagonists, Fee McInnery. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you introduce Fee to our viewers and listeners, and what she means to you?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. She's a quiet soul. She's very much on the outside looking in. And I wanted to write the story through her eyes because I'm not a drag performer. That's not my story to tell. And so I write through her eyes. And she has friends who in the drag community. And her best friend, Robin, is a superstar. She adores him. They share a flat in Dublin, looking out over the Liffey. And she loves photography, she loves bridges, loves the river. She's half English, half Irish. She works in a shop and she pings artisan, overpriced organic foodstuffs for people who've got way more money than she has. And she loves good coffee and, and Robin, her flatmate, Robin is one of those people who's born to shine. And the story begins on Robin's first night when Robin becomes Maybe, the drag queen, baby queen for the night. And Fee is so excited for Robin. And she's there in the audience and she's supporting him. And he's great. He's good. He's wobbly and he's a little unsure of himself, but he's good and he's going to be fantastic. And everyone's there behind him, supporting him, apart from one. There's one character there. Shall I keep going? Do you want me to keep going?
I think you should. I think this is really good because again, this is how the murder.
This is how
the
we
background
begin.
to that murder. We don't we don't need to know who did because we're going to read and find out who
I'll be
did it and
careful.
why
Yeah,
did
for
it.
sure.
But we certainly like the thought of a body.
Yeah. Well, so we have the first night and Maybe is on stage and she's just incredible. And Fee's loving watching her. So Maybe is Robin, her friend. And there's this one person there, this one drag queen, Eve. And Eve is not lovely, shall we say. And after the performance is done, everyone's congratulating May. Eve then steals May's drag and repeats the performance in a really quite a cruel parody. And of course, the audience are lapping it up because the audience love a takedown. But it's hurting May, it's hurting Robin, and Fee can see that. And Eve is removed from the club, and they carry on. And then as Fee is going home that night, late that night, in the rain, in the dark, in Dublin, she comes across a body. She comes across Eve lying dead, face down in the gutter. And so we begin.
It's interesting because, you're describing Eve and of course it makes me think about Eve Harrington, and all about that kind of thing. And, this is going to sound really bad, but thinking, do I feel sad that Eve has been found in this state after she's been so mean and so cruel?
And do
so
you?
you challenged my morality at that point because I'm thinking good, but thinking no, it's not the way to go. It's not the way to go. So,
well, I think that's what's so important for Fee, in that she really feels that justice has to be done as we go on, even though Eve is a horrible person. Nobody likes her. She's done terrible things, as we find out as we go on. But that doesn't make it okay that no one's investigating whether or not she's been murdered.
Yeah. And again, I think that is a beautiful point that you raise. To what extent do the authorities care? To what extent does it matter that this is, you know, these are people from a certain community in society, and does it really matter? You know, again, it reminded me, there was, you know, reminiscence there of where, you know, where it might be a sex worker that has been killed, and so does anybody really care, because, you know, occupational hazard, blah blah blah. But again, I think with this protagonist, with Fee, and as you say, Fee's not larger than life.
No.
It just is, and yet the terrier within her, you know, you know, I am going to push forward on this, and I wondered, is this because, you know, we don't sure about Fee's, you know, life previously? Is this Fee's first foray into sleuthing?
It is. It is. I think this is it for Fee at heart, in that she'll always be looking for what's right. And that's so important, isn't it, with any sort of sleuth, whether it's Poirot or Marple or Fee McGinnery, is you need somebody who will fight for the right, who will say, it doesn't matter whether I like the person or I don't, or what they were doing, or who they are, or where they come from, or what colour their skin is. What matters is that it was, you know, somebody was murdered, and we have to stand for that.
Yeah, seeing that justice is done. Now, I wondered, you know, because it's such an exciting, I would say, glamorous read as well. But I wondered, is the finished article that we can enjoy, is that how you first envisaged the novel would be, or are there any aspects that you or your editor said, nah, we need to change this, and are there certain things that you're sad that didn't make their way onto the page?
The only thing that I took out was swearing. I was always quite so I swear a lot in real life. I'm quite a sweary person, but I don't like hate words. I don't like words that are in that way. Words are very important. The whole words cannot hurt us is rubbish. Words hurt. They get under our skin and they hurt. And I was never going to use any slurs. I was never going to use any words in that way. But I did, the idea of writing about a drag community and not including swear words was a little challenging at first.
Yes. Will they all just be doing interpretive dance and not?
Gosh,
Yeah.
silly me. But at the same time, I want the book to be comfortable for people.
Yes.
And you know, so that was something that I did look at. Other than that, the book pretty much, a bit like Robin, appeared in my mind, just ta-da! And the series, the world of Trash the Club, and of Fee and Robin and Dell and Thora Point and Miss Merkin, and all of them, once they sort of leapt into my head, they stuck there.
And do you, I mean, you know, authors often talk about, you know, characters come into being, and do you have ideas of what you would like to do with these characters? But sometimes, in a strange way, they actually won't let you, because they have ideas about who they are and what they do. Have you found that with any of your characters, that you've had to wrangle a little bit?
I had to think about Dell, because pronouns are very important, and I wanted to be respectful of pronouns, and I wanted to show a diverse group of pronouns and people, because that reflects real life. And Dell is a drag queen who uses he, him pronouns, and he, him in his non-drag life. Whereas Robin would be he, him as Robin, and she, her as maybe, and Thora and some of the others the same. And so when I came to writing Dell, I wanted to write him with he, him pronouns, which I think was sort of quite a challenge at first to sort of try and work out and to present to some people, because the world is a different place, isn't it?
Very, very much so. And I remember a few years ago working with a group of trans students. It was in my role within the union, but you know, we wanted to understand better, and you know, then we wanted to support our members, other lecturers, in how to create those safe, inclusive spaces in your classes. And this lovely group of people, they came in, they sat down, and they went, well, before we begin, could we just go around and say our pronouns? And I think back then, it's something now that I think not for all of us because the circle's removing, but for a lot of us, it's a thing that we're used to, finding out how people would like to be identified and acknowledged. Back then, I was like, oh, okay, and it was something that I'd not even thought about for myself. And I think again, this is what the book that you have brought to us. I really think it's a book of our time, and the changes in society, and what I deem, working with students and see such positive changes in the way people don't have to hide, can be the person who they feel themselves and know themselves to be, and so the community that you again have created are these people that are just owning who they are, and it's out there.
Isn't that the wonderful thing about drag, though, is that you can be 100% who you are on that stage. You can be someone else, but you can also be who you are.
Exactly. And I wonder sometimes, there's I think especially if you leave home and go to university, or if you leave home and go work elsewhere, and of course, we evolve, we change, and friends and family might say, oh, you're not the person that you were.
And what they mean by that is you're not the person I thought you were.
Yeah, exactly. And all that idea of that we're so one-dimensional, and yet, in the simplest of ways, we do behave differently if we're in a formal setting, if we're with people that we know very well. There's different aspects of us that emerge. So why ever not that, within, the drag community and within that performance space, here's an aspect of me that you might not have seen or acknowledged, or here's part of me that I can bring out here.
Yeah. I think queer spaces nowadays are so important to protect, to give that security of being oneself, because not everyone is safe to be themselves. I'm very safe to be myself. I'm out, I'm bi, I'm very happy, but not everyone lives that way.
That's right. And the more and more that I learn, of working with young people and saying, you don't have to conform. If this is not you, it's fine if it is you. If you're happy, if you're happy to do what we deem mainstream, it's great. Do it, be it, lovely. But what if you don't?
Be who you are.
Yeah. And I think it's I almost think like if you had a sort of like a little subtitle for the book, it could just be who you are.
Be who you are. Be fabulous.
Yeah. Definitely. Now, at the back, I always love when authors thank people, because it gives lovely insight into who's, and you thank a certain person called Jim Ryan.
I do.
Are you allowed to share who is Jim and what did he teach you?
Jim, that was not the person I was expecting you to ask about, actually. Usually people ask about Victoria's Secret, who's a drag queen in Dublin. Jim's a guard, and I contacted him and asked him for some advice about firearms. And very, very kindly showed me a whole bunch of guns and how to shoot them and use them. I was going to go with a slightly different storyline with many more guns. And he explained to me kindly that we don't really have that kind of gun crime in Ireland. And it was all a little bit silly. So I thought, okay, fair enough. And whereas I do use, there is brief mention of guns. It's in a different way. I won't go into why. But it was fascinating. I love talking to experts, whether it's someone who knows about lichens growing on trees, or firearms, or bullets, or how to cover books with leather, or anything. Just people who are really interested in a topic, I find fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And it made me think, well, I wonder if at one point in Fee's trajectory, maybe if she went to the States, there could be more
Mm.
in, you know.
Well, she hasn't thought about that, but I'll mention it to her next
See, she
time we
fancies
chat.
she fancies a wee, yeah. Because they could, they could all pop over to the Castro maybe. And yeah.
Oh, I don't know how my lot would handle being over there. I don't know. Can you imagine an airport with Thora Point and Miss Merkin and maybe and Dell and the amount of luggage it would take
Yeah.
to get them to go anywhere?
Yeah, yeah, and totally scandalizing, the people in the airport lounge. It could just be, but I can imagine on the plane that the entertainment could be, yeah. And now I'm envisaging a film, and we should. I'm sorry, we should stop that. But of course, and I will, and I need you to talk to me about Victoria's Secret, yeah,
Victoria.
and again, just what you can share. Like, how did how did you meet Victoria? When did you broach the idea of talking about the book? And what does Victoria feel about the writing?
That I haven't asked her. She's been really kind. I contacted her a few years back about a different writing project, and I explained that I was writing a drag character, so something very different a little while ago, and I wanted just sort of ask a few questions and just get a bit of a sort of background knowledge. And then I met with her for the first time. I met her as Victoria, and she was in the full. I watched the gig, and the gig was brilliant. And as I was talking to her, she was taking off her drag. So she was
Oh,
taking off her wig and her makeup and her clothes and getting, back into boy clothes. And it was such a fascinating process to watch. And I don't know, that kind of stuck in my mind. But
mhm,
she's been incredibly kind over the years. I mean, I must have pestered her 100 times, whether it's how many pairs of lashes do you wear or this, or, and I love watching her on stage. She's so good. She's just she rules the stage when she
mm,
steps out. And I love the stuff she wears. And yeah, I just think she's basically, I adore her. She's very sweet to me. So
yeah. But again, to get those authentic voices,
yeah.
and for that input, so that the text that you then give to us
Hmm.
is a text that resonates.
That was really important. And the Dublin drag community have been incredibly kind and very, very supportive because obviously it's not real life, it's fiction. It's
Mhm.
very fiction. Um, nobody gets running around getting murdered all the time, and this doesn't happen. If people carried on like they do in my books, they'd be fired within a week. In book 2, I introduced to the group a drag king, and it was really important for me to start
Yeah.
introducing more of that community. And I was talking with Phil T. Gorgeous, who's one of the most incredible drag kings. I've just never seen anyone like him. And he was really, really kind to give me his time and to explain a few different things. And that really, really helped for book 2 as
Mhm.
well. So
Yeah. Do you know, this is an awful thing that happens, isn't it? You enjoy the book that we're talking about. I talk
mhm.
about with authors, but then I'm thinking, okay, so I can't wait for the next one. When do we get the next one? It's like, whoa, slow down. This one's just emerged.
Well,
Let's.
the next one's only out in April, so we haven't got long to
Oh,
wait.
seriously?
Yeah, Death in the Dark, it comes out this April.
Oh, brilliant. That is so, so good. Thank you. I think I have, yeah, well, I have a festival that I have to attend to, but once that's done, that's going to be my treat.
Excellent.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Again, there's someone else you mentioned, and it's your dog Rupert, and it says, "Who likes to have the last word?" Is does Rupert rule the roost, as it were? Is he in charge there with you?
Oh dear. I feel terribly seen all of a sudden. Put it this way, right now, in order to be able to talk with you without him sat on my knee, he's shut in another room, 2 rooms away, with the television on, with only non-squeaky toys, a soft cuddly blanket, and a heater. So
Bless.
yeah, I'm afraid he does rule the roost. Yeah, I
Yeah.
am ruled by my Labrador. That's shameful.
Now, so I have a couple more questions, and I want to get as much as possible from you. And a question that I often ask authors is, the book as a whole is just delicious. But if you had to choose a scene or a character that would almost be like the angel or the fairy on the top of the tree, so an aspect of the book, a scene, a character, what are you most proud of about this book?
Wow, that's really Sophie's choice. Okay. There's one scene later in the book. And so Robin is Maybe, and May is on the bridge and she's in full fabulous drag and she looks amazing. She's got this long red dress and she's perched right up on the bridge. And Fee is there taking a photograph of her. And two people walk past and they say a word that hurts her. It's designed to hurt. They say a bad word. She brushes it off, but it's designed to hurt. And what I'm proud of is that I included that. And because I thought about it and I wasn't sure, and I didn't use the word itself because, as I said before, we all have our own words that hurt. None of us can't recognize that feeling of a word.
Yeah.
So that's the scene for me that sticks out for various reasons and how they deal with that.
Yeah, beautiful.
I mean, there are others that I really, really, really want to pick now. I really want to pick Thora Point on the back of a moped racing through Dublin with a full wig and the gown and everything else. I really want to pick that one, but I'm not gonna.
I think we can let you have two. I think that's fine.
Thank you.
I think just the extravagance means we can have two. Definitely.
Thank you. I've never been very good at not breaking the rules. So.
Wonderful. So important. So important. And I know choice is difficult. But I think the important thing is that not do the binary. So having two, and there's loads more. Definitely. Again, maybe this is tricky to ask you this, but I hope it's not. So for those of us, your readers, we immerse ourselves in the book. We enjoy, we delight in watching Fee not give in, and go against all that's happening there to say just leave it alone, and she won't. But what is it, do you think, if there were an overall message from Death in Heels, what is it that you would like us to take away?
Oh, wow. Okay. I suppose what I get from it, which is the sense of family. So come in, join us, read, be part of the Trash family. Sink in. There's room for everybody.
It's so beautiful. That inclusion, and regardless of how high your hair can be piled, and regardless of how low your heels might be, there's that sense of you are welcome.
Always.
Definitely. Well, Kitty, I really want to thank you for our time together. There's so much more that I would like to discuss with you, and maybe one day we could actually meet in person.
I'd love that.
And I can, interview you with a live audience and get them to ask some questions about your writing. I am so excited for second book, which is great. But for now, viewers, listeners, it's Death in Heels by Kitty Murphy. It's out now. It was out in January 2023. So it's out now. And just for a fabulous, glorious read with a brilliant mystery, though, I think we shouldn't underplay the solving of the mystery. I think that's most important. For now, Kitty, I'll just wish you all the very best, every success, and see you soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant.
A pleasure, absolute pleasure. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.